Hello, everybody. This is Mike of the Amish of Etheridge and Amish and Mennonite of Tennessee page, and, well, I'm dressed a little different, aren't I? It just happens to be that this particular video is going into a course all about selecting and understanding a dog. That is true. It's called Fetch, and we've got it over on our Crockett Coonhound page. It just happens to be that if you're watching this as a course taker, you're going to be saying, hold on, why aren't you explaining yourself as Scooter J. Trayhugger like you always do? And it's because I'm going to be putting this video here that you're watching, and it is part of the course. That is true, but I also wanted to share it on YouTube. It happens to be that a lot of people go to the Amish and Mennonite communities to find their perfect pet, usually dogs. And a lot of times people get certain type of feelings whenever they hear about the Amish or the Mennonite people or Hutterite people, the Anabaptist groups, and dogs. There's a lot of documentaries and stuff out there that a lot of them are shown to be not true about the Amish and Mennonite people having like a puppy mill and all that stuff, and that they do nothing but abuse them and all that sort of thing. And let's face it, every group kind of can have that happen. However, whenever I've went to a community, I've never seen one. A few that I have been to, they just had a lot of dogs. The Amish and Mennonite people tend to not want to spend a whole lot of money on things, so they're going to have a little bit more, I guess you would say, meager rations, places to stay, all that sort of thing. It will be suitable. It just won't be as lavish, I guess, as some of the English places. Now, keep in mind, I have seen some absolutely terrible animals come out of places that the English have had. I'd say English, if you guys don't know about the Amish and Mennonite people, because of their two kingdoms approach. There's the kingdom of God, and then there's basically everybody that's part of the world. And then whatever people that live in the world is just what you're called. You know, you could be full-blooded Japanese and you're still English if you're here in America with the Amish. So that's why I mentioned them that way. There is a lot of the Amish people and the Mennonite people, Hutterite people, that have dogs with papers. However, because you're selling an animal to another person, they tend to like to have papers. But papers also mean you're part of the government, because the AKC, PKC, all these guys are not really government groups. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that they have a record, they have a breeding pair, all that sort of thing. And if you sell a papered dog, the state that you live in, and it happens to be for me the state of Tennessee, is probably going to want to know some information about that particular sale. So if you find yourself as a dog breeder, you're going to have to be kind of looked at, if you will, and it usually involves somebody coming from some kind of organization or government. So whether or not papers mean a whole lot to you, you're going to have to find an Amish or Mennonite person that happens to have what we would call papers on your dog. All that sort of thing. So for a lot of people, they also want to say about an Anabaptist dog. Well, obviously the dog didn't choose to be Anabaptist. What I'm saying is that the dog was bred to be for sale by a member of an Anabaptist church, whether it be Amish, Mennonite, Hutterite. That's why I keep mentioning what I'm saying. And they're going to have certain type of questions, usually pertaining to how well it's been raised and, conditions and all that sort of thing. I find that they usually have pretty good conditions. Typically, from what I can tell, they tend to like the dogs. I mentioned, if you ever take some of my other courses, the Complete Guide to Visiting the Amish of Etheridge, and then my road trip course called the Plainest Tennessee, of course, the Plain Communities, the Plainest Tennessee Road Trip, where I teach, it's 22 hours long, talking about how to take an effective road trip. However, if you do run across a dog named Pup, And that means they're not even going to give this dog a name because pup usually doesn't live long. He's going to get kicked by a horse, bitten by a rattlesnake. He's going to get bit by ticks and spiders. There might be a big coyote that eats pup one day. And pup's not going to have a great life. And a lot of people, they drive up and they see pup and they think all their dogs must be like pup. And that's not true. What happens a lot of times is us English people, we assume that the Amish and Mennonite people are always going to take in and treat their dogs well. So they will take their dog they don't want no more because they got some kid a puppy. And then the puppy got big. And then the kid didn't like the dog no more. So when they can't rehome it or they don't care anything about it no more, they're going to take him for a ride and then push him out and then take off down the road. What we would call dropping off a dog. And the dog's going to be like, they're going to come back and get me. And after a couple days, it's like, I'm hungry. I'm pretty sure they're not going to get me. They don't think they like me no more. And then, of course, the Amish people see the dog and it's like, hey, you know what I mean? He hangs around their dogs. They'll feed him a little bit, but they're not that attached to a bunch of dropped-off English dogs. But they don't want them to starve. But that dog will usually become kind of mean because it lives around a bunch of other animals, and some of those animals are wild and they're not very friendly. So they're going to hope that it takes up with other dogs and keeps some of the, rabbits out of the gardens, and they're going to work, basically. And so a lot of times the plain communities get a bad rap because people drive up and then they see this dog and they assume that's their pet dog. And it's not, it's just a dog somebody dropped off on them, or it wandered in from a community and just, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot to be said. But there's a lot of people that come to the Amish and Mennonite groups here in Tennessee because we don't have Hutterite, but Hutterite also have dogs. But they want a particular kind of dog. But sometimes the plain groups aren't really that interested in making, say, a very purebred dog. You tend to get a lot of X-breed. Josh will cover that, in other lessons. If you guys are wondering about that genetic thing, be sure to follow the description link into our page where you'll learn about this particular course named Fetch. Okay, it's all about selecting a dog and learning about dogs. I go through some absolute tinfoil hat type stuff around the dog, so I'm not going to divulge a lot of it here because you have not purchased the course, but it is in there. Okay, I wanted this particular video to really talk about the plain communities and dogs. What you'll also find in the Amish and Mennonite communities is dog collars, dog leads, just a lot of different things, dog houses. Oh, just tons of stuff about the dog. If you really want a really high quality cedar wood dog house, they have some really, really, really nice ones. If you want some of that like 2 or 3 millimeter thick, you know what I mean, you could if you got a huge dog that wants to, I guess, pull trucks or something out of the mud. You could find it here. Dog leads, just a lot of things. You could find made for them inside the Amish community. Josh does a lot of that stuff too. He could probably explain where he finds his. Also cedar chips if you got an outside dog. The Amish communities are really good. They got these big saw blades, and they'll just come out with all these cedar chips. So if you need to bring down sometimes poplar, hickory, different things. But if you want to line some of your dog pens with them, go right ahead. All that sort of thing. So even if you're not in there for getting a pet of your own, you've already got a pet, and you got an animal that just loves to stay outside. Some animals, we think that they're being harmed because all they do is stay outside. But for a lot of dogs, they don't want to be inside. You know what I mean? There's just certain breeds certain kinds of dogs. Sometimes how the dogs grow up. They don't want to go inside a house. House feels claustrophobic. My voice sounds weird. The the hardwoods and stuff. So they'd rather be outside. All that sort of thing. Most of the time, too, let's face it, most dogs have to go outside to poo. So, they just tend to prefer it to be out there in nature. So, they're going to have a lot of things for sale for people that want to get into dogs or, into accessories, all that sort of thing. That's there. They'll sometimes put little engravings around the dog's collars, and they'll have really good buckles and all that stuff. They're really good at making things. But I know that generally what people do is, they look up Amish and dogs, and what they find, some kind of documentary that shows all of them are terrible with dogs, and they treat them badly, and they never feed them, and all that. Same for horses. They believe they go to some kind of Canadian kill farms and all that sort of thing, and how they know for a fact it's true, and they got a person that they've got that lives in a community. And I'm not going to say that there's probably not some of them, but to lump everybody in a particular group in with something you're going to see on television, that's just not happening. I'm sorry. In the Etheridge community, it's the largest one in the South. We had one guy that they thought, like I said a while ago, they thought had a puppy mill. It was just one guy that had a lot of dogs. Not by a lot, it was like 60 to 100. It was a big barn. You'd have several pretty loud if you walked up to it. But when you looked in there, they had straw, all that sort of thing. There was just a lot of dogs. But he sold a lot of dogs, and a lot of people traded for dogs, all that sort of thing. He would do horse sitting also, like you'd bring your horse over, like say, I'm going to be out of the country for 3 or 4 months. Can you keep my horse for me? He would do that too. So he just had a whole lot of different stuff that he did. And but from the outside, people wanted to say things about an Amish person who had no idea people were saying things about him, but I went and seen him myself, and turns out none of that stuff was true. But like I said earlier, people do drop dogs on them. And so you have a whole lot of just straggly dogs, some sick dogs, some just different things. And it's not because Amish don't like them. They try not to spend a whole lot of money on a dog or an animal at all when it comes to all that sort of thing. So to take one to a vet, it better be really, really sick before they take one to the vet. And a lot of times that gets them in kind of hot water, if you will, because people go see that animal and they think, well, it's got a sick horse or sick whatever, and they think, well, that must be how they all are, and they want to lump everybody in with this one, and that's not very fair either. A lot of times vets will make house calls to the Amish and treat animals, and because a lot of times it's their horses or their cows or something else, and they don't want to lose a whole cow or a whole horse or something like that. But and it might be that the dogs that they're selling, they're going to call the vet too, but some scraggly dog that came up because some English guy dropped on them, or they're not going to call the vet for that dog. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are seeing the dogs that's not theirs. So I hope that clears out a few things. Now, if you do want a dog that does come from the plain peoples here, there's a lot of them. They'll usually try to crossbreed hypoallergenic dogs. And that's because they know the English want them for some odd reason. Everybody wants a Cavapoo or a Yorkie Poo. And they've got this idea that the dogs don't shed or that they're hypoallergenic. I hate to say this because some people just believe it. There's never going to be a complete hypoallergenic dog simply because the dog has dander. It has skin cells that's going to flake off, and that's going to find your nostrils. And if you're allergic, you're going to find the allergic properties of dog hair. It doesn't matter what you do to them. I don't care if you shave the dog. It's going to lessen, I guess, to some degree, but it'll also expose more skin. But everybody comes with hundreds to the Amish. Can you get me a Cavapoo? And they're like, maybe, yeah, I don't know. If you keep handing me money, we'll find a way. You know what I mean? And a lot of times they do. A lot of times people think because they came from the Amish or Mennonite that they're cheaper. Nope. I'm sorry. If they're cheaper, it's only because the person that you were going to get an actual bred dog from probably had a little bit of an inflated price. Okay, I got 2 show cat ragdolls. These are cats. They were thousands of dollars. They were gifted to us because this lady also liked our story. You know what I mean? And she was a nurse. She's going to have a baby, so didn't want the cats, but they wanted them to go to a good home. They heard about my daughter's autistic story and all that sort of thing, and decided to give them to us. But they are something else. You know what I mean? But a lot of people think because they're the Amish and they can always get a cheaper price than anywhere, and a lot of times they're a couple $100 to sometimes over $1,000, depending on what breed you're looking for. And a lot of times those dogs will have papers, and they'll have a bloodline back to a breeder and all that sort of thing. And sometimes the Amish you're getting them from are quite well off. I know several Amish millionaires even. They become very successful, and they can spend a little money on getting a breeding pair of dogs and then breeding a few. They know which ones are which, and then they'll find a person within their community who's also doing the same, and that's how they keep from having, strange dogs when you keep marrying them to the same family. But they know how biodiversity works. And then they'll find another breeding couple and do a little trading. And you'll come up there and expecting a $200 dog, and it'll be $800 or $900, and you'll be like, oh, but they're the Amish. I thought they took less on everything. Not necessarily true. Now, it might be that same dog is $2,000 from a breeder, and $900 sounds reasonable. But a lot of people don't realize that it's not going to be like $50. You know what I mean? They know what they have, I guess, if that makes any sense. But a lot of times people are finding their perfect dog, especially if you're looking for like a blue heeler. They have a really good, even a red heeler, different dogs like that. They're very good farm dogs. They kind of double as the family dog, all that sort of thing. A very loyal dog, and they like them. They just do. They like certain breeds. You're not going to find some teacup Pomeranian that looks like a little ball of fur, because that to them is a little bit showy, and it attracts attention to oneself for merely putting bows in its hair. I mean, you know what I mean? So you're not going to find a lot of those in an Amish and Mennonite community typically, okay? Now, when I say the Mennonite people, let's face it, the modern Mennonite have cars. They dress like us, they look like us, they talk like us, they go to our schools, all that sort of thing. So depending on what flavor, if you will, because the Mennonite vary the widest. There's everything from, the modern Mennonite USA to the old order communities that are even stricter than the Swartz and Truber Amish. I mean, there's a lot of variation within the Mennonite, and you might find a group of them that have dogs for sale. So don't just look up Amish dogs in my area. But it might just be a Mennonite store where you can ask a few of the members. They all go to church together like the Amish do. Well, they go into buildings. The Amish go to their houses, but they might know of some dogs that are bred and are right for to take home for however much money. So that's going to kind of give you an overview on dogs and the plain peoples. Like I said, a lot of people that get a hold of me on my Amish of Etheridge page and my Amish and Mennonite of Tennessee pages, who has a Cavapoo, or who has a Labradoodle, and all these different dogs. And I'll be honest, 90% of the time, I have no idea. Why is that? Because the people that generally breed them already have people who expressed interest, and they've recorded their name, so they're going to have letters sent out. Hey, we're about to have a litter in April. You know what I mean? Price is going to be, say, $900 or something like that, or $400 or however much it is. And they're going to get a letter in the mail. I want one, I want one in gray if you have a gray, or a brown, and they're going to say, oh, okay, well, we'll just see. And they'll usually wean them. They're usually about 2 months old or better before they'll start letting them out. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing. And they'll usually start picking also the top of litter, mid litter, runt, I guess, if you will. And they'll also tell you which one is which, because of course top of litter is always going to usually be the more expensive one, all that sort of thing. I tend to like the middle simply because I want a dog that's going to be really good with children, all that sort of thing. I don't have working dogs. Like I say, I don't have any dogs. I have foo-foo cats, all that sort of thing. But that's another thing that we explain in the course. If this sounds like, what is the top of litter? What is a mid? What does that mean? If you really want to know, buy the course, fetch. It's like I said in the description, all that sort of thing. So let me you guys that are on YouTube, put down in the description or below the description where the comments are. Tell me about your Amish dog experience. Most of the time, about 70% of the people that come to my pages, which I have about 114,000 followers on the two pages combined at the moment, and I'd say about 70% love their Amish dogs. Sorry, I've been doing a lot of courses today, so I've got a cough. And they absolutely love their Amish dogs. So I haven't had anybody say that was the most worthless dog ever. But anyway, tell me what you guys think. Now, if this sounds exciting, okay, you're talking about a course that is going to help select a dog. I'm like, yes, absolutely. Not only teach you how to select, but what if you're dating somebody? What if your significant other is going to be moving you into their apartment later? Things are getting serious, and not so sure about how the dog's going to. We talk about that. What if you have a kid, and the kid wants a husky? Which I'm like, I don't think so. Huskies are bad about pushing kids over. They get kind of jealous, don't they? And other dogs too. And it's like, what? I didn't know that. I didn't know. Okay, so I talk a lot about kids and dogs. If you know what is a cockapoo, or what is that anyway? What's a labradoodle? It don't make sense to me. Josh explains. He goes by the Crockett Cooner. He raised the 2009 Louisiana State Champion dog. It was he used to go by Brownies Black and Tans. He raises coon dogs. Some of them are the price of a house. I mean, this guy knows what he's talking about, and he explains breeding. He understands a lot about training a dog. He also understands a lot about typical maintenance to dogs, all that sort of thing, what to look for. When I mentioned a while ago, top of litter, what does that mean? First to nipple, all that sort of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into dogs that most people don't know, and we explain it in our course. So be sure to look in the description. We're going to have a link that's going to go to a page where it's going to tell you everything about the course, and you're going to figure out by the end of that page whether or not you want to buy the course. Also come back to our Facebook page, because sometimes sometimes we give out codes that'll give you money off of the course, okay? And this also goes for my Amish courses, all that sort of thing, because I tell you exactly how to visit Amish course or Amish communities. A lot of people that get there, they don't know what they're doing, they don't know what they're looking at. They go to a place and they find something, and then they hand the Amish person a debit card, and they just smile because they don't have electricity, much less a debit card reader. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing. It's like, well, buy the course. It's like 24 hours long. You know what I mean? Where I explain why, for example, if you've seen something like this in an Amish house, and you said, well, I want one of those, but I didn't buy it, so you got a hold of me. There's a dog toy. It looks like a giraffe. It was next to a white house with a red shop. And I'm just going to be like, oh my goodness. That explains just about every single Amish Schwarzentrooper place where they live. So I have no way of knowing where that could be because it explains just about every house. So why do they paint the workshops red and the houses white? Why do they have to have a certain dress? Why is it that the younger women, or say young girls, have dresses that come up in the front, where all the ladies have to have ones that come up around the back? Why aren't they allowed to have underwear? Why, with spandex? The guys don't wear any at all. I'm saying, why do they have to have suspenders? Why can't the Amish man be outside without his hat? There's a lot of things people want to know about them, where I explain it in my course, The Complete Guide to Visiting the Amish of Etheridge. And, of course, if you're going to go on a road trip, the tourism industry brought me to 29 different states. I went all over the country since 2010. And I've been to other countries even, and I've kind of learned how to take a road trip successfully. Last year we went to see the solar eclipse and all that sort of thing. Had no problem. Had all kinds of weird troubles. I talk about that in the course. I talk a whole lot about who to bring, what to bring. I talk about security. I even explain travel insurance and open jaw flights. That's when you land in one city, you get a car, and then you eventually go to another city where you fly out. So you don't have to return the rental car back to the airport that you arrived in. So anyway, I'm going to leave a link where it talks about our premium courses, all that sort of thing. But if you really want Fetch, the one I was just talking about, be sure to click down in the description. It'll go to a page where you can kind of find it in the group of other courses. Click on it. That's going to go to a page that tells you all about this particular course. And hopefully, for you guys that are on YouTube, I'll see you in another video. But keep in mind, this is part of the course. All right? This is just a bonus lesson. For you guys that actually bought this particular course, you're going to go on to the next lesson. All right? Anyway, I'll see you in that next lesson. We'll see you guys.